Indonesia bans sex outside marriage. What the new criminal code really says. Stay tuned for details. Selamat siang. Welcome back to the latest news from Bali in Indonesia. This is December 8th, I think, 2022, and my name is Bruce. What's the weather like today? Very nice. Clear, a few clouds, very sunny. Wind speed is 11.4 kilometers per hour. The temperature is 30.8 degrees Celsius, and the humidity is a very high 74%. It is a little sticky today. I was out today at Clandy's with my son and my granddaughter and my wife buying some clothes for my new grandson. And wow, a lot of foreigners were there today. I was surprised. And even more surprised, they were all wearing masks. Now, they looked like they were a little up there in age, probably not as old as me, but a little up there in age. Maybe that made them a little more amenable to following the rules. I don't know. Generational thing? So the big thing today is the new criminal code. I've gotten 6 emails in the last 12 hours asking me about this, and I haven't even looked at the YouTube comments to see if there's people asking me about that there, and it is all over the internet, and it is international news, and some of it is just clickbait. A lot of it is just clickbait, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about the new criminal code. Let's start out by taking a look at a few headlines from the international press. This is from Reuters. Indonesia bans sex outside marriage in new criminal code. New York Times, in sweeping legal overhaul, Indonesia outlaws sex outside marriage. In The Guardian, Indonesia set to make sex outside marriage punishable by jail. In Al Jazeera, Indonesia passes new criminal code, outlaws sex outside marriage. From the Greek Reporter, Indonesia bans sex outside marriage, including Bali. Here's a couple of Indonesian headlines related to this. Lawmakers pass revised criminal code despite protests. RKUHP, passed by DPR activists in Bali, regret the rubber article, which is harming the people. Okay, those are just 2. I'm not going to go through all of them. Do you get the point? International press, what are they focused on? Marriage. Indonesian press, what are they focused on? Backup and civil liberties. 2 different mindsets. Because what? Because one thing, sex sells. And so put sex in a headline like I did today, and I did it on purpose as a little experiment to see if numbers jump up because people see sex. And so this criminal code is passed. It's over 200 pages. There is a section on sex, and that is what everybody internationally is focused on. Indonesians are focused on a backup in civil liberties, as I said. And so let's talk about it. Lawmakers passed revised criminal code despite protests. So lawmakers passed the revised criminal code on Tuesday, and critics say that it dilutes anti-graft rules and civil liberties after insisting, that is the lawmakers, that they have taken public opinion into account despite civil liberties protests to the contrary. At the House of Representatives plenary session where the bill was passed, lawmakers claimed provisions widely deemed draconian had been softened, such as those criminalizing insulting a sitting president and outlawing cohabitation before marriage, as well as articles governing the death penalty. Representing the government at the session was Law and Human Rights Minister Yasona Lawli, who used a similar argument. He said, "We have tried our best to accommodate the important issues and different opinions that were debated. However, it is time for us to make a historic decision on the revised criminal code and leave the colonial penal code we inherited behind." But there's a lot of people aren't happy with this. Activists belonging to a coalition of some 40 civil society groups that have been keeping tabs on the bill had demanded that lawmakers postpone the passage of the bill until some of the controversial provisions could be properly and publicly addressed, arguing that the bill as it stands will curb civil liberties. Protests are already underway in Jakarta and in Bali. Let's take a look at a couple of the parts of the bill. The punishment for corruption has been reduced from a minimum of 4 years to a minimum of 2 years. Good news for corruptors. The maximum penalty remains at 20 years. The bill also maintains that insulting a sitting president and vice president is a crime, although the maximum penalty has been reduced from 3.5 years all the way down to 3 years. The provisions are not applicable to criticisms voiced during a demonstration, but critics say they could still be used to stifle free speech. Now, let's get to the sex part. The bill also maintains articles that stipulate punishments of 1 year in prison for fornication and 6 months for cohabitation outside of marriage, flouting criticism from activists who say criminalizing such activities violates the right to privacy. Consensual sex between unmarried people and non-marital cohabitation are not crimes currently under the criminal code. Adultery is, however. The government has expanded the long-standing ban on promoting communism or Marxism-Leninism to other ideologies that contradict Panchasila without a clear definition of what that contradiction means and what institutions can decide who's contradicting Panchasila. In the final November 30th version of the criminal draft, which is the one that's been released, the RKUHP contains 624 provisions and 37 chapters, which will officially be made effective in the next 3 years. It ain't happening tomorrow. Let's take a look at one more Indonesian article. RKUHP passed by DPR. And I think I said PKUHP before. You know, my eyes are still not really functioning all that well. RKUHP passed by DPR. Activists in Bali regret the rubber article, which is harming the people. So even though the new criminal code will undergo a transition period of 3 years for socialization and become effective in 2025, some parties consider that the articles contained therein could potentially become rubber articles that is flexible, that are detrimental to the people. Rubber articles, you know, rubber is used a lot in Indonesia now because, well, this is a flexible country, flexible language, everything is flexible, time is flexible. Money is flexible. The director of the Bali Forum for the Environment, Wali, I've talked about them many times before, regretted that the many problems with the articles are ratified in the draft. He said many articles are rubbery and threaten people's fundamental rights, especially in terms of having aspirations and expressing opinions. Moreover, the blunt sanctions for environmental criminals, right? Reduced sanctions. In addition to that, regarding the rubber articles, which are still being accommodated, Pak Krishna thinks it will be a potential for arbitrariness to chain anyone, to put anyone in prison as a result of making criticisms that are interpreted as being insulting. Several articles are also of concern to every activist because they have the potential to cause problems in the future, because these articles can be used to silence people's aspirations, such as Article 240 and 241, which regulate criminal acts of insulting the government, and Article 218, 219, and 220, which regulate criminal acts of attacking the honor or dignity of the president, vice president. Meanwhile, Secretary General of Bali People's Democratic Struggle Front, Frontier Anak Agung Gede Surya Santana, said that the history of democracy in Indonesia has shown that articles on insulting the president and vice president and articles on insulting the government and state institutions have been deleted before, and so they can be deleted again. Apart from that, he regretted that the rubber and problematic articles that were accommodated actually contradicted the basic rights and freedoms of citizens as emphasized in the 1945 Constitution, especially Article 28. Okay, that's a quick rundown. This is 200 pages, and I'm going to go through it and look at it. I need to translate it. I saw it online before, but I did not download it. I've got to go back and download it. I'm going to translate it and go through it, and if there's more, well, there probably will be, and I'll talk about this in a future video. Let's just talk about the sex thing, because that's what everybody's in a fuss about right now on the internet. People saying, I'm not coming to Bali anymore. And I mean, really, do people read? It's just incredulous. Somebody sees an article and it says, you know, Indonesia bans sex, including tourists. And they go, oh my God, I can't go to Bali anymore because oh, I'm going to be dragged out of my hotel room with my partner while we're doing the horizontal tango, and they're going to throw us in jail. Okay, no, they aren't. That ain't going to happen. For one thing, you can't have sex outside of marriage, right? The only people that can turn you in are family members. If you're here, we'll just take Australia because 60% of the people that watch this channel are Australians. So if you're Australian and you're here with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and you're doing the horizontal tango in bed, nobody can turn you in. You don't have any parents here. You don't have any husband. You don't have any children, right, to turn you in. So you are cool. Nobody is going to bother you. And if you think that a hotel is going to ask to see a marriage registration to stay at a hotel in Bali, well, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, because that ain't going to happen either. And people that are online stirring up hysteria about this and going, oh, the only people that are saying this is not going to affect tourists are people that have an interest in tourism. Well, if you watch this channel, you know I don't. I have no financial interest in tourism. I make no money from this channel. I'm just telling you what things look like and looking at this in a historical perspective. This is not going to affect the majority, the overwhelming majority of the tourists. Who could it affect? Okay, this is who it could affect. Let's say, for example, we'll use Australians again. An Australian comes into Bali and he's got an Indonesian girlfriend, and they go and get a room and they're in the hotel, but her mom or her dad does not like it. Now, they can report them and he can get in trouble. That is one way. Another way, he or she comes in having sex with somebody that is married, a local person that is married, adultery, but that's already here, right? And how many people have been jailed? How many foreigners have been jailed for adultery here? I don't know, but I don't remember any. Okay, so you've got to be turned in by a family member. So is this going to affect tourists? No, not unless you're having relationship with an Indonesian. Now, what about if you're doing something with, let's say, a person who's playing for pay? That could be a problem, theoretically. Somebody could turn you in, say her husband or a boyfriend who wants to kind of try to extort money from you, and they spook you and they go, I'm going to turn you in for having sex. She's not married to you and you're in big trouble. Okay, that's a possibility. But what's going to happen to the young lady or the young man? Okay, they should be in trouble as well. So is that going to happen? I don't know. You could try it as a scam and see if it works because, well, you know, people get into a situation. You're a foreigner, you're a tourist. They get in, some guy comes and says, blah, 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 and I'm going to do this. Maybe they poke up some money. So what is the bottom line on the sex thing here? It is not going to affect the overwhelming majority of people. Next thing is, I forgot to mention blasphemy here. So blasphemy is on this law, and I'll talk about that more. But you don't want to say bad things about religion, any religion in Indonesia. It is not a good idea. It has never been a good idea. And I'll talk more about that when I talk about this bill in another video after I've read it and gone through it and translated it. Now, the government has said, if you don't like this, take it to court. Go to the Constitutional Court and test parts of it. If you don't like it, there's 3 years for this to be talked about, for this to be socialized, and so chill. If you are believing what you see on international press about Indonesia, you need to check on local press as well. You should always check on your sources and make sure you've got good sources. And somebody's talking about the Bali Sun said, okay, not even going to go into the Bali Sun. What do I think about this bill? Do I think this is a good thing? Personally, no. I think it's a step backwards for democracy in Indonesia. But I'm just a resident here. So that's what I've got to say on the new criminal code. Chill, relax. You got a lot of stuff to worry about that's more important than this. What is that? If you are a retirement person, it is the retirement visa, because this is the 8th and the 24th is the time that the retirement visa is over and the second home visa starts, and no word yet, still deafening silence on this. Let's go into the next story and get away from this. No sex. Sandiaga launches 100 Christmas and New Year travel packages. So he's launched 100 Nusantara travel packages dubbed Pak Wisnu. And this is for domestic tourists for Christmas and New Year holidays. He said that each regional government of the 34 provinces suggests 3 recommendations for their best tour package. He said, I want to use this opportunity to increase the movement of Indonesian tourists with a target of 1.2 to 1.4 billion trips. The ministry has carried out a simulation regarding the movement of domestic tourists, he said, and the results show that nearly 80% of the tourists are centered in Java, especially Central Java. Okay, I think we're all familiar with that one. Pak Sandiaga believes that the program will drive the local economy and support economic recovery. Everything he does supports economic recovery, particularly in the tourism sector. He also hopes that the tour packages will encourage Indonesians to travel domestically instead of leaving the country. Stay here, spend your money inside Indonesia. Hopefully people are interested to choose this Pak Wisnu instead of traveling abroad during Christmas and New Year holiday, he said. The tour packages can be assessed via Indonesia.travel tourism site. So stay at home and spend your hard-earned rupiahs right here. And some more on tourism. Encouraging an increase in foreign tourist visits, Garuda Indonesia reopened Seoul-Bali PP flights. Wow. My friends in Korea, come on over. Starting on Monday, okay, so that was a few days ago, the international flights from Korea to Bali and Bali to Korea started, and the inauguration of flight was marked by the GA871 using A330-300 fleet, which has a capacity of 251 passengers, consisting of a configuration of 36 business seats and 215 economy seats. Upon arrival at I Gusti Ngurah Rai Airport in Bali, they received a water salute. The inaugural flight from Incheon in Seoul carried 141 passengers to Bali. The main director of Garuda Indonesia said that the reopening of the flight route was a form of Garuda Indonesia's commitment and support for the recovery of national tourism industry, especially Bali as one of Indonesia's strategic tourism hubs. According to him, with this flight, tourists from South Korea will be able to access various tourist destinations in the central and eastern regions of Indonesia with a choice of various flight schedules that are more seamless from one of the flight hubs served by Garuda. These Seoul-Bali flights will operate twice a week, Sundays and Mondays, and will be served by Incheon International Airport in Seoul with GA871 and will depart from Incheon at 11:35 local time. The flight scheduled to arrive at I Gusti Ngurah Rai International Airport at 17:50 Waktu Indonesia Barat. Meanwhile, flights from Bali to Incheon will be served by GA87 and depart from Ngurah Rai at 0125 WITA and arrive in Incheon at 9:15 LT local time. So it's a long flight, but I really want to go to Korea. But I have to take a lot of my family with me, which would make it expensive. So I don't know. I have to think about it. And Governor Koster was happy to hear about this, and he thanked Garuda for their hard work in opening flights from Seoul to Bali. He said this will accelerate our joint efforts to recover Bali tourism after more than 2 years of experiencing a pandemic which has had an impact on the economic sector. And just at the end of this article, it said Garuda is planning in the future on opening the Melbourne-Bali route. I heard from my friend David that Garuda is not flying from Perth yet, and Perth sends a lot of people to Bali. So I wonder why Garuda is not there. Anybody have any idea? Any real idea? Not rumors, right? Let's try to stick to the facts. And more on rabies in Buleleng, because this is getting serious. Rabies cases are high in Buleleng, but the government has never established an outbreak. So 12 people have died from rabies in Buleleng this year, since January. And the government has never set the status of an extraordinary event, a KLB here. Members of Commission 9 of DPRE, Ketut Karyasa Adnyana, suggested establishing the KLB. He said the government should determine the status of the outbreak. He said this is so the government can develop a strategic policy on how to do this, on how to take care of the rabies situation, and can also implement policies that are more binding on residents who keep rabies-spreading animals. According to him, rabies cases must be followed up seriously and comprehensively. If the government ignores it, he said, it will affect the image of the world of tourism. This must be discussed and followed up seriously. He said, don't let the number of victims increase, and the image of tourism in Bali, which has actually started to rise from COVID, will be used by certain individuals to bring down tourism in Bali. Seems right now the government is doing a good job of that itself. So is the status of a KLB going to happen in Buleleng? Well, if there's an urgent need for a higher legal product, then according to the government, they will certainly follow it. They're going to pay close attention to the actual conditions, whether an outbreak of determination is necessary, according to government spokesperson. And he said what's urgent now is community participation in controlling rabies cases. He asked people to tie up or cage their pets so that they don't bite other people. Additionally, people that are bitten by dogs should report to the local health facility and livestock extension workers, just like I said the other day. The important thing is to report it if you've been bitten, even if it doesn't seem very serious. If you've been bitten by a dog or a monkey or a cat, go and report it. And some more on health in Indonesia and BPJS. And you know, I have BPJS. I'm using it for my eyes. And so, what does this say? Diseases covered the most by National Health Coverage BPJS Kesehatan. And so, according to the BPJS Kesehatan website, the disease that the agency covers the most is classified under catastrophic diseases, especially amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Catastrophic diseases, what are they? They are chronic and non-communicable diseases which have been covered by state insurance up to 31% compared to the total costs since the health insurance program was initiated in 2014. And here are the 8 top diseases that are using the large proportion of catastrophic financing. Heart disease, 49%, cancer, 18%, stroke, 13%, kidney failure, 11%, thalassemia, doesn't have any percent, cirrhosis of the liver, leukemia, and hemophilia, the top 8. And so, if you've got one of these chronic diseases, you can use BPJS to help take care of it. And if you don't have BPJS and you have a keytop, you can get it. I would strongly recommend it. There are a number of bule behaving badly today. Wow, some bules robbed pharmacy store. And maybe I'll talk about that on Monday, but I think this is getting too long. I just want to follow up on the motorbike theft. The other day I was talking about the Brit who stole a motorbike. Well, Brit goes from drugs to grand theft in Bali. So the motorbike would actually belong to an Australian. He told the police that he'd spent hundreds of millions of rupees modifying and customizing his bike, so he was not happy when it got stolen. And the thief had recently completed a narcotic rehabilitation program following his arrest in 2019 for cocaine possession. According to the head of Bali's Regional Office of Ministry of Law and Human Rights, he said the English person was imprisoned in Indonesia for narcotics and had his sentence commuted on 27th of June 2022 to a 6-month rehabilitation program for narcotics offenders. He was released from the program last month in November and, of course, immediately went out and stole a motorcycle. Police theorized that he was possibly penniless and stole the expensive customized motorcycle to pay for his living cost in Bali. Why doesn't he just go home? And why wasn't he deported anyway? He was busted for cocaine and he wasn't deported? That's interesting. Right now, the Englishman is in police custody and is being interrogated. He faces charges under Section 362 of the Criminal Code with a possible maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. Better off having gone home. Okay, that is it for today. I've got a lot of people coming to visit now who watch this channel, and I enjoy talking to everybody that comes by. You know, one of the things that I found out, and I was talking about this yesterday with the lovely couple that came by to visit, was that the people that I'm meeting, well, one is they tend to be older, and that's because of demographics of this channel. You know, the small viewership I have, they're mostly older people, mostly Australians, with some Indonesians. And, well, they're much more like me than, say, somebody from Canggu, some young person from Canggu or from Ubud. And so I always enjoy listening to their take on different things. I enjoy meeting everybody. And if you are in Bali and you would like to come and visit and just have a chat, just leave me a message. My granddaughter, Zoe, who you may have seen a number of videos, she's always curious about foreigners that come to visit. As I said at the start, no word yet on the retirement visa. Still waiting to see what's going to happen. The government's going to have to say something sooner or later. And so it's just, can you wait? I see on the internet some people are saying that they've sold their stuff already and that they're planning on moving out, that they've already made plans to move out. Oh, don't jump the gun. Wait and see what's going to happen. People get so hysterical these days about stuff. You know, riled up about the bill. Oh my God, I'm going to be put in jail for sex offenses. I'm going to be kicked out of the country. Could be. Who knows? As I said, I'm not from the government, but I would wait and see what happens. And just a reminder, one more time, you are not going to be thrown in jail for sex offenses. For one thing, this is going to go on for 3 years. It's not enacted for 3 years. And so relax. Don't worry. Be happy, as we like to say here in Bali. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe. And I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.